were the ancient Israelites Negroes? Once again, a lot of these questions are redundant. We have proved that the Negroes are the people, but we're going to go into some more details on that matter. All right, so he has another important half-truth that we're going to discuss, and after you view the video, we'll talk more about it.
1170. However, these Jews in Africa were then decimated due to plagues and famines in AD 1201 to 1202, as well as the Black Death in 1348, which continued to drastically reduce the Jewish population in Africa.
So basically, he's saying that there's no black Jews in Africa due to some black plague. Now, that don't even make sense, but I'm going to debunk that right now.
Say what?
Say what?
Say what?
Say what?
Say
what?
What?
That's how I feel about it. Now, let's go into it.
Tell the truth. Tell the truth.
So I'm going to tell the truth. Now, one of the things we're going to start with to debunking that all the Jews are, black Jews are dead in Africa is the Negro Land map, 1747. Let's take a look at it. Notice it says Slave Coast. This from the Arab scholars. They call it Negro Land. Now look at this map. It was made in 1747. Notice it says Kingdom of Judah, where it says Slave Coast. It's a primary slave port. Also known as Hawita. These are the other names of Judah. And we're going to see Weda and Oweda. That's the door of no return. Still stands today. It's always been about money. I'm going to prove that. There's just too many coincidences just happen to be on that map. All right, we're going to slow it down for you a little bit. And I'm going to actually show you that map. Okay? So we can take our time looking at it. So this is the Negro land map, as you can see. And we're just going to look at it. There you go, that's Slave Coast. Now, the thing that's important you understand is that a European drew this map. They'll go Weda right here too. That's another name for the Jew, for Judah. Now, you got to understand, next to it, you got the Gold Coast, you got the Tooth Coast or the Ivory Coast. Then right here, you got the Grain Coast. See right there, that Grain Coast. Now, the thing is, you want people who can work this terrain right here. Now, if you coming in and you want to take the gold, you want to take the ivory, and you want to take the food, what do you got to do to people who live here? What do you got to do? Well, you got to get rid of them. That's what you got to do. And you think they're not going to fight? Well, the way you get rid of them is you sell them into slavery. Then you take over, and then whatever's left, you get them to work the gold, you get them to work the ivory, and you get them to work the grain. Now, once again, this is not a map that we came up with, meaning black people came up with. See, this is a European settlement. See, it was established by England, Denmark, Holland. This is their writing. Here's the this is the guy
Eamon
Bowen. That's who made the map. Made sure some of the people had some shade on them. So this is evidence that the people in this terrain was called Israelites or Judah or Jews or Weda. This is not something that's just made up. Okay? But there's more evidence. I'm not just going to leave it right there. There's more evidence on this. Now, we're going to get into a person who was taken as a slave.
This is Olaudah Equiano.
All right. So this slave
Olaudah
actually did a biography of himself. He wrote the book, and he's going to explain to you who he is. And I'm just going to give you a quick overview of his book. I'm not going to go into deep, but this is one of the references. This is what we consider a primary source. This ain't somebody who a scholar, who's somebody else. This is a person who lived it.
So this is Olaudah Equiano is in his fascinating autobiography called The Interesting Narrative of the Life of Olaudah Equiano, who was a slave that eventually gained his freedom. Goes into the great detail in the first couple chapters of his book.
All right. He goes into great details
in the first couple chapters of his book and compares the Igbo way of life to that of the children of Israel. Mind you that his recollections are as a child before the Igbo ever met a white man or a missionary. He talks of his father being a chief in his tribe, and the way he describes the council of chiefs sounds much like Moses and the 70 elders of Israel. It sounds like a Jewish Sanhedrin. He speaks of kidnapping considered a serious crime, and although the Torah, which is the 5 books of Moses, calls for the death penalty, Exodus 21:16 and Deuteronomy 24:7, the Igbos instead keep the spirit of the law and had to pay a life for a life. For kidnapping, the Igbo requires a slave given to the victim of kidnapping for recompense. Equiano says that adultery among the Igbo was met with the death penalty, and this is just as the Torah demands, which is in Deuteronomy 5:18, 22 and 22, and Leviticus 20, verses 10 through 12. He speaks of the Igbo having polygamous marriages, and we know that the biblical patriarchs have more than one wife also. Olaudah also told his readers that the Igbo had arranged marriages, and this too was found in Hebrew culture. Abraham had Isaac's marriages arranged, as well as Judah did with his sons, and we could go on and on regarding the examples of arranged marriages in the Bible in regards to the children of Israel.
Now, this is before Christianity came down there. This is way before Christianity. This is before any ministries try to convert anybody to Christians.
Olaudah Equiano also spoke of public celebration of songs and dance on victories and special occasions, and this to me is reminiscent of Miriam and the women singing, dancing, and playing musical instruments after crossing the Red Sea and Pharaoh as his men drowned. Also, David singing and dancing before all Israel after the ark came into the city, to the chagrin of his wife Michal, which was Saul's daughter. Also, we must recall how the Kenaniah of the Levites would sing and dance before a battle. He also spoke of the musical instruments they have used, and it resembles the instruments of Psalms 150. Olaudah also spoke of the way the Igbo dress, spoke of and how blue was the favorite color of the Igbo, and blue is a very important color to the Hebrew, for it's traditionally thought of as the color of the throne room of God, as well as the thread worn in the fringes, the Jewish prayer shawl.
All right, we're going to stop right there. Now, this is a first-hand account of a Hebrew, an Israelite, okay? But that's not enough. There's more. Now, this individual is a person who went down and he ran into the Nigerians, which is at the same place where the slave coast is. If we look at modern day Nigeria, it's at the same location that we looked at when it says Judah, Kingdom of Judah. So let's see what this historian has to say.
So this is a book by G.T. Basden called Among the Igbos of Nigeria. Anglican missionary G.T. Basden was so sure of the Igbos being of Israel, he told coming missionaries to familiarize themselves with the Old Testament law so as to better witness to the Igbo, because the Igbo lived like ancient Israelites.
Now hold on a minute. This is not a black man. This is a European who said that he believed that there was an ancient Israelites.
His superiors believed G.T. Basden reports that they instructed him and other missionaries not to tell the truth to the Igbo for fear of losing them to Judaism.
Now see that? Not telling the truth. That's the fear right now. Don't want the black people of America or the ones who went into the diaspora from the slave trade, don't want them to know the truth. The fear of losing them. I'm gonna tell you why. They fear of losing that money, that tithe. When we realize it's not a religion, it's a way of life.
In fact, the Anglican missionaries tried to teach them to stop observing many of their Jewish-like practices.
What? That's crazy. Because the Bible tells us how to live our life, and they trying to keep them from living their life according to Scripture. And that's exactly what we do today when we tell the Christians that the law has been done away with. We're saying stop living your life according to the tradition of the Most High and according to his laws. But we want to live according to the tradition of man. That's what we want to do. Keep Christmas, Easter, Mother's Day, Halloween. I done seen churches keeping Halloween, but I digress.
So I'm starting over. In fact, the Anglican missionaries tried to teach them to stop observing many of their Jewish-like practices. And so the argument some have that the missionaries taught them how to live like Jews is absurd. Igbos clearly lived this way long before the white man or missionaries ever came to their shores.
Wow. But that's not enough. Let's give them more. This is a documentary called The Emerging the Jews in Nigeria. Now, the only reason why I don't like the re-emerging of it is because it's saying like, they taught them this. No, what really took place, someone went down there and tested them to see if they stood up to scrutiny. And they did. They stood up to scrutiny. So let's take a look at this part. This is only be a couple of pieces of the documentary. Please take the time to do your own research.
From deep inside Africa, a sound is emanating that is causing reverberations around the world. It's the sound of Judaism. A sound sound of a people casting off 2 centuries of colonialism, returning to what they say are their native roots.
Native roots.
I know from birth I'm a Jew. Only I know that my forefather missed the way.
I grew up alongside every other Igbo youth. We kept on hearing that Igbo people came from Israel.
There was a story my mom told me at the age of 6 years. I never forget. He said the Igbos are Jews.
And it's the story of one man, Shemuel, who went searching for what that meant and found answers on the internet, prompting a journey that led him to a community of thousands of Jews. A place where resources are few, but commitment transcends. Through prayer, practice, ritual, diet, and song. But this is also the sound of doubt from Jews in America.
They would ask me, are you from America or where? I would say, no, I'm a Nigerian. They say, you black? I said, yes. They said, no, it's not true.
And rejection from family and friends.
I am like.
Now, he said in America, they asked him, what was he? Are you black? He said, no, I'm a Nigerian, I'm a Jew. And automatically they say, no, it's impossible. Because we have been brainwashed to believe that anyone that it has any shade to them can't be an Israelite. Which everything originated from dark-skinned people, melanated people.
Like an outcast among them.
And in this volatile Christian Muslim nation, doubt often turns to violence. This is the story of the Igbo, 25 million strong, a people once under siege by their very own government,
Biafra declared its independence.
and a people once captured and shipped across the Atlantic by the hundreds of thousands.
Facts.
A people who helped build America, and a people whose descendants are now discovering their Igbo roots,
Facts.
raising questions of cultural identity for countless African Americans.
Many African Americans actually do not know that they have Igbo heritage. The chances of their being Igbo is much, much higher than their chances of coming from Ghana or from Western Nigeria.
If you're from the right county in Virginia, you probably have a 60% chance of having Igbo ancestry.
It's a story of the strength of belief, ancestry, and community. Boosted by a visitor who inspires everyone and helps take Shemuel's dreams to a whole new reality. The Jews of Nigeria are re-emerging.
So what I'm saying to you is this. The information is out there. Stop being lazy. Stop just assuming that people are just grabbing hold to something simply because we're oppressed. That's not what we're doing. We're using logic. We're using facts. We're using history. We're using document. And we definitely grounded in the Bible, which the church don't teach us how to be grounded in the scriptures. We grounded in the truth. Now, this is a sale, I guess, receipt or something they will put in the news. And notice it says, find Hebrews. Now, the crazy part about it is if you say they just arrived from the what?
Windward and Rice Craft.
Now,
Coast.
Rice Coast. What's the Rice Coast? That's the grain coast.
Yep.
That's the grain coast. That go back to the map. Because you want to know, can these people work as agriculturists? You just didn't want to pick some random slave to come and do some work for you on the plantation. You want to know what's their trade, what's their gifts. And everyone knew that an Igbo was one of the better slaves that could be bought. The Hebrews.
I think that meant Ebos, but they just
Yeah, it could
Ebos.
be Ebos, Hebrews, you know. And we got to understand that they said they was from the rice coast, the grain coast. It's too much out there to show that we are the people. If you're rejecting it now, it's because you're lazy and you don't want to do the research, or you're just biased, you prejudiced, and you might just be just racist. But the proof is in the pudding. Now, this is called Israel Hill.
Free blacks of Israel Hill. Just to the west lies Israel Hill, settled in 1810 to 1811 by approximately 90 former enslaved persons who received freedom and 350 acres from Judith Randolph under the will of her husband, Richard Randolph, cousin of Thomas Jefferson. These Israelites and other free African Americans worked as farmers, craftspeople, and Appomattox River boatmen.
All right. Now,
Appomattox.
Notice they said these Israelites. Now, we all know that in Virginia is where the first slave landed. That's where the first slaves landed, in Virginia. And we're not saying that every slave came off the boat was an Israelite, was it an Hebrew. We're not saying that. But we are saying that the majority of them did. We are saying that. And the thing is, we're trying to let you understand that we are the people. No shadow of a doubt. It's more than enough evidence. And here's the funny part about it. We have this evidence, and imagine if they weren't trying to cover it up. We still got evidence, and I'm sure they was trying to cover it up. Now, this documentary is called The Limbo Tribe, the Lost Tribe of Israel in Southern Africa. This is when we call South Africa. Now, South Africa flourished too, and it's one of the better countries you can go into. And it's funny that you're going to see that there are some Negroid Jews. If you want to, he kept saying Negro features. Well, you're going to find that it's more black Israelites.
I came into this village and the first word I heard was shalom.
Yes.
The Hebrew word.
Yes.
How's that possible? How is it
because they're Hebrews.
The Lembas are the original Hebrews, and they were scattered, as you know, and they crossed into Africa. So they were scattered all over.
You heard what he said? They are the original Jews, Joker.
And they were scattered.
Scattered. Now you show me where those Jewish converts were scattered throughout all the world. Scattered means taken, like you scattered seeds in the ground. You throw them. He's saying they are the original Jews.
So in South Africa, in many parts of South Africa, you find members who are actually Hebrews.
Hebrews. So the Lembas claim to be descendants of ancient Israelites?
Not claim, they are.
They are.
They are.
Okay.
They are. Not claim. Joker, we are.
We are scattered all over.
See what I'm saying? See how they try to take something and say, well, y'all claim. He said, nah, Joker, we don't claim. We are. Let's find something. Let's find something else about the DNA evidence. Now, this is important. Because now we're getting into the science. Now we're getting into some science.
So this article is titled DNA Tests Show Africa's Lemba Tribe Truly Jewish.
Truly, take that ish out. Jews. Here we go.
A British university professor says he has uncovered genetic evidence that a black African tribe living in Zimbabwe in northern South Africa is related to the Jewish people. Leaders of the Lemba tribe have claimed Jewish origins for many centuries. Tribal legend says that 7 Jewish males left ancient Israel about 2,500 years ago, making their way to the southern part of the continent. There they met and married local African women, teaching them of their biblical, religious, and dietary practices. The Lemba tribe has many customs and rituals that are quite similar to those practiced by Jews since biblical times, such as male circumcision, wearing skull caps, and abstaining from eating pork. Professor Tudor Parfit of London University spent the last 20 years
20 years trying to debunk them. That's what he was trying to do.
20 years researching the Lemba claims of Jewish ancestry. He carried out DNA tests on many tribal members and compared the results with similar tests done over the years of thousands of Israeli Jews. He told the BBC that while many people have characterized the Lemba claims of Israeli ancestry as far-fetched, scientific evidence has now established that their oral tradition is based on fact.
Scientific evidence. Now, we about to get into some of that.
On the border of Black Africa, as the Nubian drummers played into the night, I was reminded of my work 20 years before with a southern African tribe called the Lemba. As far back as anybody could recall, the Lemba had claimed to be Jewish. Effectively a lost tribe of Israel. Their oral tradition said they were led out of the Holy Land by priests at the time of the Babylonian invasion, and that they'd taken a sacred object they called the Ngoma Ngundu with them. I believe that the Lemba and the Ngoma hold the key to understanding what happened to the Ark of the Covenant. When I first arrived in Africa in the late 1980s, I hadn't been searching for the Ark at all. I'd come here purely to investigate Lemba claims that their ancestors were Jews who'd once lived somewhere to the north in a place they knew as Senna. Today, the Lemba live either side of the Limpopo River in modern-day South Africa and Zimbabwe. When I first came here, there were still Lemba elders alive who would refer to their people as the white men who came from Senna. But at that time, it wasn't clear where Senna was. I hadn't seen my old friend Raulinga for many years. He's one of the guardians of Lemba traditions and was keen to remind me of the uniqueness of his people's culture.
We adore and worship Yahweh, the only one. We don't adore ancestral spirits. We don't worship idols of animals, trees, stones, the sun, the stars, or the moon, which Yahweh has made. Culture is the backbone. It's a unifying force. Now, I know culture changes in accordance with time and place, but the root of culture remains the same. You see, now we have lost touch with our people for about 2,600 years now.
The Lemba were convinced that they were a lost tribe of Israel. The problem was that no one believed them. They appeared to be completely African. But I discovered a number of mysterious legends and customs that were very un-African.
They ain't mysterious.
Men from other tribes were not allowed to marry into the Lemba. They refused to eat pigs and certain other creatures. They practiced the ritual slaughter of animals with a special knife. And they circumcised their male children at an early age. Many of today's Lemba are Christian, but blend elements of Judaism even into their services.
I'll lift up my eyes to the hills, from whence comes my help.
By the mid-1990s, I'd become convinced that the Lemba claim that they were of Jewish origin could be true.
You know
They
it.
preserved so many Jewish traditions for so long.
He ain't convinced because of the
The
tradition.
final proof only came
This
when
why
the
he convinced
science of
right here.
genetics was applied to Lemba oral history, and geneticist Trevor Jenkins decided to examine the Y chromosome of Lemba males. His interest had been sparked by what he'd heard about Lemba culture.
The musicologist Margaret Nabarro told me the Lemba were of Jewish origin.
I think she said that their music showed some signs of Jewish influence.
Yes, she did. And so I went with her to a Lemba cultural festival and collected my samples there.
Astonishingly, Jenkins discovered that the Lemba were indeed of Semitic origin. Subsequent research done by other geneticists showed that a significant proportion of Lemba men had a Y chromosome pattern known as the Cohen modal haplotype, which is characteristic of the Kohanim, the ancient Jewish priestly class.
You heard that?
They were effectively a lost Israelite tribe.
It was a vindication. For the Lemba, we always knew that we're Jewish, okay? But it was for those people on the outside that had said we're just making claims. You know, that here is proof that one cannot tamper with. These people are who they say they are.
What was even more surprising about the DNA research was that the Cohen genetic fingerprint was especially strong in one particular Lemba clan, as geneticist Himmler Sudjal explained.
The Lemba identify different clans, and one group that had it at a frequency in excess of 50% was the Buba.
According to Lemba oral tradition, the Buba clan formed the priestly class and were responsible for leading...
Hold up a minute. They Levites. You see what I'm saying? This ain't something that, you know, somebody that's on the street corner just all of a sudden just making this stuff up. Now this is DNA evidence. This is evidence, and I guarantee you they ain't telling you the whole truth. This is certain things that you just can't, you know, deny. That's what they're doing. They're just seeping it out just a little bit at a time because you can't deny it.
And they're being careful with the figures. When she say they tested them and the results came back in excess of 50%, it could have been 99.9%.
Exactly.
But she say in excess of 50%.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, they're very clever.
Mm-hmm.
The Lemba out of Israel. Genetics had confirmed that some of the Lemba's ancestors had indeed carried the DNA fingerprint of the Jewish priestly class, the Kohanim. Science had verified that part of their oral history. But could I believe the rest of it? That they'd been led out of Jerusalem by priests at the time of the Babylonian invasion and travelled to Africa via a place called Senna, carrying with them a sacred object called the Ngoma.
Now, at the end of the day, no offense to him, I don't care what the white man thinks, what he believes. See, this is the problem right here. The problem is we only feel like it's true once the white man gives us a stamp of approval. They have been saying it for centuries. They said they always knew. But see, we have been set up to believe something totally different. And that's the problem that we have when we're dealing with people who have not done their research to why the black people here in America now accepting that they are the lost tribe of Israel. They just think we just own some black power, Black Panther movement type stuff. Mm-hmm. We're not.
They don't make it clear that these people are not African. Because when you do DNA test results, and that identifies who you are as a people. So they need to identify them as a people from Israel, one. Mm-hmm. And they'll never say that. They'll just say that people in Africa has a DNA that links them to the tribes. And then they'll say a certain percentage of it. So not to really get you to see that they are fully Israelites, but let you know that they have some sort of link to the Jewish people. So therefore they must be Israelites.
Yeah, Jewish.
Yeah.
Come on, man. Jewish. Now, we're about to get into someone else who can tell you who we are. Now, go ahead and read this.
So this is Mustafa al-Akkad. He was born on July 1st, 1930 in Syria. And of course, he died November 11, 2005. And his nationality is Syrian American. So he had a citizenship in the United States. And he was known for producing a series of Halloween films.
Now, what he did was he made a movie called The Message. The Message is basically about how Islam came about. Now, the cool thing about it is that this is a man who's coming from what we consider ancient lands. And of course, he is going to portray the people according to how he viewed them or his history, because we're going into Arab history now. Mm-hmm. This ain't the white man history. So he is going to display it. Now, it's a part where in this movie, in The Messengers, that some of Muhammad's believers, because remember, the Arabs didn't always believe in Islam. So this is what the movie is about. They didn't always believe in Islam. They believed in several gods, and the message is showing how Muhammad and his believers start saying there's only one true God. And the cool thing about this part of the movie, they want to get what you call when someone's a refugee and they want help. They want to get
I can't think.
Oh man. Well, they're being persecuted, right, by the Arabs because they don't believe in one God. They believe in multiple gods.
Well, they're seeking refuge.
So they seeking refuge, right? And guess who they seeking refuge from? Or to the Israelites. In this section, they're seeking refuge from Israelites, an Israelite kingdom, and you're gonna see this played out in what took place. Just in this scene alone, look all the shade of colors that we have. You got the Arabs over here, and they came in a couple of different shades of color. These are the messengers right here from Muhammad, and they believe in Islam. And these are the Israelites are betrayed that has been betrayed in this movie. Notice the cross they have on their staff, just like Moses would have.
Stiff necks will hang them.
Do you not bow to yourselves before your prophet?
Muhammad is a man. We kneel only to God.
Where are Muhammad's miracles, Jafar? If he were a prophet, he'd light the sky with miracles.
Indeed, this is true. God has given his prophets the sign of miracles, that we may recognize them.
The miracle of Muhammad is the Holy Quran.
A book written by an illiterate, attributed to God. I think the emperor has heard enough.
I'm mindful of Pentecost, when God sent down tongues of fire upon the heads of Christ's apostles, so they could speak the many languages of the world. But
did you hear him? He said it reminded him of Pentecost, when the Lord sent down the Holy Spirit so men can speak in many tongues. So he was saying that's what it sounded like for the prophet.
They knew not before. But do such miracles happen in our times? I've heard enough. You've made a poor case.
When we suffered persecution in Mecca, Muhammad told us, go to Abyssinia, the land of a righteous king, where no man is wronged.
What they called persecution was fair punishment. There is order there.
Why did your prophet send you to me?
Because you believe in the book of the one God as we do. He sent us because in your heart God will protect us.
Talking with them is like drawing water from a mirage.
But they've now laid a duty on me to listen to them, my friend.
years, we worshipped wood and stone, images of our own manufacture. We lived in ignorance of God. We had few earthly laws and no heavenly laws. The rich neglect the poor, and the natural pity of man, whereby he lifts his brother up when he has fallen, is described by them as upsetting social order. To this inhumanity has come a man whom God chose, and in that we believe.
You are overcome. I beg you to collect yourself.
I speak of the messenger of God. Muhammad teaches us to worship one God, to speak truth, to love our neighbors as ourselves, to give charity. Even a smile can be charity. To protect women from misuse, to shelter orphans, and to turn away from gods of wood and stone.
I cannot keep still and hear this blasphemy. We are an ancient civilization. To call our gods wood and stone is to speak ignorantly of them. The idol, the form, is not what we worship, but the spirit that resides within the form.
I agree that idolatry is not always fully understood.
Thank you. Now let me bring him back to the women.
God made woman to be the proper companion of man. She is different, but equal.
Equal! We buy them. Feed them, clothe them, use them, discard them. Women equal to us?
God created man from one male and one female. Now, you must respect in all women the womb that bore you.
Why are your 300 gods so tongue-tied, while his only god is elephant?
God has spoken to us before, through Abraham, Noah, Moses, and through Jesus Christ.
You heard him?
Why should we be so surprised that God speaks to us now through Muhammad?
Who taught you those names?
They are named in the Quran.
I knew Muhammad when he was an orphan minding sheep.
And we knew Christ as a carpenter. What Christ says, and what your Muhammad says, is like two rays from the same lamp.
They are lying to you. They deny Christ. You worship three gods, they say. Father, Son, and Holy Ghost, they say.
What do you say of Christ?
They say God cannot have a son. Christ is not the Son of God.
Speak to me of Christ.
We say of Christ what our prophet has taught us. That God cast his Holy Spirit into the womb of a virgin named Mary, and that she conceived Christ, the apostle of God.
The apostle, he says, not the son, not the son.
What does your miracle, your Quran, say of the birth of our dear Lord Jesus Christ?
May I relate the words?
Come closer to me.
In the name of God, most gracious, most merciful. Relate in the book the story of Mary, how she withdrew from her family to a place in the east, how we sent to her our angel Gabriel, who said, I am a messenger from your God, to announce the birth of a holy son to you. She said, how shall I, Mary, have a son when no man has touched me? And Gabriel replied, for your Lord says,
Look at all them shades of black people.
Happen. We appoint him as a sign unto man and a mercy from us. It is a thing ordained.
For a mountain of gold will I give them up to you. You may live in Abyssinia in peace for as long as you wish.
Now, the reason why I wanted to put this in is because you see the Arabs could have chose the white man to be the Christian, but they knew that wasn't true. Also, did you see the drawings behind them of all the brown, tones in the pictures? This wasn't no white people dealing with, and to be honest with you, these are considered Christians by this point in time, because they had accepted Christ as their Lord and Savior. And this is way before Islam had came in and swooped down and conquered Africa and forced them to take on Islam. So we can clearly see that there's more proof out there. Here's another person who says what color the Jews are.
So this is Gamal Abdel Nasser, and he made this quote in 1952. He said, when he was asked about peace in the Middle East, the late president of Egypt, Gamal Abdel Nasser, said, the Jews will never be able to live here in peace because they left here black but came back white.
Now, it's another Arab making the point we just saw in the video that the true original Jews or Israelites were melanated people. Now, let's get a confession from an Israeli.
Hi, shalom, shalom from Israel. This is Ola, the daughter of Jethro. And I just heard that you black people that was stolen from Africa to America, that you don't know who you are. But you are the children of Yahweh, the children of Israel. And I'm telling you, you have to come back to your homeland, here to Zion, to Jerusalem, because us the Gentiles, we do need you. We need you to come and pray because you are our saviors. You're the one that was chosen by Yahweh to live in this land, not the Jewish people, it's you. You were stolen from Africa, they deceived you, they told you that you are slaves, but you actually the children of Israel. And it's time just to come back. Come for your people, come back for us, come back for the whole Gentiles, because only you gonna save us. So please come back to Zion.
Now, I'm saying that she knows that the blacks who was taken into slavery are the Israelites, because the scripture tells us that the Israelites are the ones who are supposed to go out to preach and teach the gospel of salvation of Yeshua, Jesus Christ. That's the order of things. But guess what? Why don't we hear it from a Jewish person? Why don't we hear from a Jewish person himself?
And I'd like to now bring up another interesting place that you find descendants of the Israelites, but may not necessarily be from the 10 tribes, but will also play a role. And it shouldn't be overlooked. It's a very serious scenario. Is in Africa. Africa has perhaps hundreds of millions of people with this identity right now.
Hundreds of millions.
Does that mean they were from the 10 tribes? Likely not. We were taught by the historians and within our own traditions that when the Romans conquered Judea, a few hundred years after that the tribes of Israel went into exile, perhaps millions of Judeans were sold into slavery. Into Africa, into Rome, deep into Africa. And if you look now, you're seeing people who are most likely the descendants of those slaves who kept true. I'd like to bring up a few specific examples because they're going to be game changers.
Game changers.
One of them wrote letters to Israel when it became a state. And they said, we're Israelites out in Africa. everyone laughed at them and they said, African Israelites, these people are just trying to jump on the first world country bandwagon. They're living in a third world country. They got nothing. We're coming to Israel. We got innovation, technology. So they're trying to get on this train because there's such a thing called the right of return. All descendants of the Jewish people from around the world were able to move to Israel. So they said we are also. And everyone kind of laughed at them, like I said. And a few people took it serious and went out there and started studying them.
Testing them.
Learned about their culture. And a professor from Duke University went out there.
White man.
And did DNA testing on them. And he showed not only did they share Semitic genes from people who were in Yemen back to the Middle East.
Middle East.
These gentlemen, a large percent of them, have the Y chromosome to be Kohanim, to be priests. Now, if anyone who doesn't know, a priest is a specific family clan of the nation of Israel who come from Aaron, the brother of Moses, who was the first priest. And anyone descended from Aaron has the status title priest. And we found that these men in this village in South Africa called Lemba, L-E-M-B-A, carry this genetic marker to let us know that they share the same as from the Sephardic and the Ashkenaz and the population of the people in Israel today. They share the same.
Now that's a half truth right there.
It's mind blowing. So everyone kind of got humbled a little bit. Who laughed at them and said, "Now what? Now what do we do about this? This could have tremendous implications." Another area in Africa.
See, he put a half truth in there, where he said, like, as if they can prove that the Ashkenazis or Jews have as much DNA evidence as the ones of the Lemba tribe. They don't, because if they did, they would show it. So they like to use the word Jewish a lot to mislead people. Because there's no, and we're going to get into that later, but there's no DNA evidence that show that the Ashkenazi is actually from the Middle East. They only find them in Europe. Because if so, we would have so many documentaries, and man, that junk probably be on every billboard on the highway showing how they got from the Middle East to Europe. But they can't tell you. But this DNA evidence from the Lemba tribe, I just showed you, hey, they testing them. Because they want to know the truth. And the whole point is, once again, the Israelites supposed to lead all the Gentiles into the truth. And here we are, so divided in the world, so divided in our culture, so divided in our understanding. That's the reason why, because we're not in our rightful place to lead to the truth.
Africa, you have something big happening is in Nigeria. You have the Igbo people, or Igbo, pronounced either way. There's 40 million of them.
40 million.
Also Christians, like I spoke about before, how that could happen to the children of Israel very easily. But also a lot of them are now coming out and converting back or adopting the rules of the Torah without all the paganism that they've been practicing for hundreds of years.
Put on us for hundreds of years.
About it from scholars in Nigeria, from scholars from the Jewish people. And where it gets interesting is, in America, there was a slave trade. And a lot of the slaves, a very high percentage of them, came from Western Nigerian ports. And in America today, you see a very large movement of African Americans who say that they're the real chosen people, that they're the children of Israel, they're the Judeans. So what are they just trying to create an identity for themselves because they were slaves, or is there really something here? And the answer is most likely there is something.
Not
there.
most likely there is something there.
Most likely, maybe that they were the original Israelites, and maybe
Boom.
the Jewish people today, who are white Caucasian people, came in a little bit later on. We know that some of the greatest sages of the transmission of the Torah were converts from Rome.
Somebody started throwing chairs.
You have a man named
fell out of his chair.
who wrote a commentary on the Torah, unprecedented, that we still learn today. He was a convert.
Convert.
Some of the largest pillars on the transmission today were Roman converts.
Roman converts.
Here we are, I'm speaking, we're Caucasian Jewish people.
He said, I'm speaking to Caucasian Jewish people, Roman converts. And it's funny because in the documentary, Keith, or the guy of Reformed Apologetics, said that you couldn't distinguish between the Jews and the Romans. You know why? Because they converted to Judaism.
Exactly.
That's why you couldn't distinguish between the two. Now, first off, who in their right mind going to be persecuted by the Romans and flee into Rome? Now, that's crazy. You know, that's really retarded. Now, of course, if you take the Jews as slaves into Rome and you put them into the arenas, well, you can distinguish them if they're dark-skinned people. They can't run and hide. That's the reason why they like the slave over in America, because you couldn't run. They couldn't. You were distinguishable. Every black man, they pretty much figured you was a slave, and that's the whole point. And he said all that to get into it nice and neatly. And look at him. He's trying to make it so no one has a heart attack up in there. But he knows the scholarship behind what he's talking about. Because I guarantee you, most of them go in trying to prove that we're not and find out we are. And then it becomes very hard to continue to tell the lie. You know why? Because it's called the internet. And once you as a scholar find out you're a liar, no one's going to accept any more of your work. So let's continue to see what he got to say.
And now you have people in Africa saying that they're the real people of Israel. It can't be ruled out at all. We know they were sold into slavery. We know now that they're fulfilling prophecies by saying, we're coming back.
Now you hear that? Now this is a Jewish person talking in front of Caucasian Jewish people, saying it. Now he know he has researched the evidence to the point where he's still trying to be kind of, well, they got an argument there. I guarantee you he knows the truth. And I'm telling you, you need to start accepting it, that we the people. Because once you realize we the people, Christ is coming back again. And he's going to gather his people from all four corners of this world. And we need to line up to the Torah. We need to start keeping the commandments. We need to keep the faith of Jesus Christ. And we need to let people know that the wages of sin is death. But we got more. We got more evidence. There's more. This is another Jewish rabbi. He's confessing. And the thing is, they ain't going to give it all up. They can't give it all up. But they going to let you know, it's some truth there. What? Listen to him.
Well, they don't even believe that they're even in the Bible, and no one before
And he talking about black people don't believe they're in the Bible.
I said, well, then nobody else did, and why should I do them? They have to see themselves in the culture, in the scriptures, in the text. And ladies and gentlemen, whether you think, and I know this is a highly, pray for me, will you please pray for me? How many feel I can feel a pin drop in the place, talk to your sisters, amen? The reason we don't want to address this, because in America, the number one day that we are the most racially divided is what day?
Sunday.
And yet our God said that he's going to bring back all cultures. So read this out. The next thing I tell the culture is, of the 12 tribes of Israel, how many are black? 8. 8 of the 12 tribes, so 2/3 of the tribes are black. So it is.
Now he said 8 of the 12 black. I'm gonna tell you right now, all 12 are black. And what I mean by that is they're all melanated people. That's what I'm saying. So I'm not getting into this Black America type thing, because most people, when they think of Black in America, they think about those who are part of the slave trade. I'm not even going there. I'm saying black as in melanated people. And you best better believe all 12 was melanated people.
Like Dominicans, Brazilians, you got Cubans that are melanated.
Yeah. Scattered throughout the world. Because what most of us trying to believe is now, okay, so 4 of them, one of them had to be white. None of them were white. I'm just going to put it out there. None.
Not when we talk about ancient Israelites.
Yeah, we're talking about ancient Israelites.
It's clear that none of them were white. But when you talk about today, where races have mixed, then of course there's like a multicolor of Israelites from their fathers. So some are really light skinned, some could be what we call white. We just don't know.
Right.
But we know ancient Israelites were all dark skinned people.
Exactly. And we trying to let you know right now that the Jewish, so-called Jewish people do not have a lock on it. They just trying to cover it up. So look, continue to see what he got to say.
Isn't it interesting? I asked them, how is it that if 2/3 of all of the 12 tribes of Israel are black?
2/3. Guess what? So now we have another question. Were the ancient Egyptians Negroes? Now, the reason why we have to figure out were the ancient Egyptians Negroes is the same reason why we had to figure out whether or not is the ancient Israelites Negroes. Because the Israelites were called Egyptians. And that's the reason why to this day, they don't want to make Egyptians melanated people.
And when you say call, meaning they were mistaken for Egyptians,
Yeah.
a lot of times in the Bible.
Right.
Yeah.
They was mistaken. So we're going to get into another, statement that the Reformed Apologetic made. To me, it's another half-truth, and you'll see why in a second.
Here are depictions of ancient Asiatics from the tomb of Khnumhotep II from 1900 BC. Clearly, they were...
Notice again, he said ancient Asiatics.
Asiatics.
Thank you. Now, these supposed to be Egyptians now. And you want to call them Asians. Why? Because that is a Jedi mind trick. Because everyone, modern day, know what Asians look like. They lighter skin. But that's the Jedi mind trick.
Are not Negroes. Compare these Asiatic men to ancient Egyptian depictions of Negro Nubians, and you can see that they do not look the same.
See that? He got a depiction. Light skin versus dark skin. It's like a Tyler Perry movie up in this mug. You see what I'm saying? But look black to me. Look at the one on the left. Now, of course, the one on the right, that's been lightened. Now, we can find pictures where they're darker on the wall, and we'll get into that later. But just look at the custom. Look at their hairdo. Both the man in the middle is darker. The other two on the sides, that light complexion, still wear the same hairdo. That's an afro, brother. So if you want to say the Asians or Negroes, you dang skippy there was Negroes, but we ain't got to get into that. We're going to just prove that the Egyptians were melanated people. Here's another half-truth. Listen to what he got to say.
What is more, the wooden chest of Tutankhamun, created between 1417 and 1379 BC, depicts the Egyptian king defeating Kushite Nubians. Clearly, the Egyptian king is brown-skinned and not Negro, while the Kushite Nubians were Negroes, being a lot darker. The lips of the Kushite Nubian enemies are fuller as well. All of these depictions demonstrate the ancient Egyptians were not Negroes.
Did you see this Jedi mind trick right here? Because you light skin, you ain't a Negro. Matter of fact, we know some red bones today to black people. I'm talking about light bright. We still call them black folks, the albinos. But he's trying to do this Jedi mind trick and say, well, see right here, they light brown. And they don't have fuller lips because the other people. Let me show you this picture. This is the picture he just showed you. It was just done imagery or whatever. But right here where my cursor is, see, these are dark skinned people. They jet black. Notice their uniforms. That means they're on the same team. Now notice the other ones who are running too, they're light brown. You see that? Right here. They're light brown. They the same people. They got on the same uniform running. So they the same shade as the emperor. He won't just cut out half the picture and say, oh yeah, you say, man, they Negroes because they black. We're going to shades. Same uniform. See that uniform? got a leopard dress on, or whatever you want to call it.
They all have on the same
All
earrings.
got the same earrings on. These are the same people. But they light skin or brown, light brown. Same color as the horse, same color as the Egyptian. All I gotta say is
tell the truth. Tell the truth.
I love that. He like, man, you better get that finger out of my face. But tell the truth, player. They look black to me. They look black to me.
Look at the nose.
Yeah, look at that nose. You got that European nose from an African.
Yep.
He done had, check it out. He had this part of his documentary where he said, look at the hair is straight. Black people got straight hair. Where you think the European got it from? An African. Look at that hair down in the corner, left-hand corner. That can get straightened. I'm sorry, right-hand corner. Right here. Look at that. That's woolly.
And they're Cushites.
And they're Cushites. That he look like he can go. She look like he can go. These ain't white people. Look black to me. Hey, let's take another one. Look at here. Look at these images. And that's 3 different groups right here. Pick one. All look like him. Now here's my part. He showed this documentary, right? And he was saying what they was looking like, but he ain't never take a picture and compare it to a modern day person one time. Or whoever these people who you say the Egyptians supposed to, he ain't take one picture of whatever and say, all right, here's the picture of who I believe they represent today. Because even the Arabs in Egypt say, hey, we're Arabs, we're not really Egyptians. We're Arabs. They'll tell you. But even they will say they're black. Now notice, why you got all these statues with the nose knocked off? Because they knew that's a Negro nose. See this guy? Well, he's melanated. Hey, you put him in America. He black. He's black. He looked just like this Voss right here. Look just like him. Let's see what they call themselves, the Egyptians. Let's take a look at these pictures. We know that's fake. Definitely look like that. Let's look at the evidence. Boom, y'all. Afros. These Egyptians. He's on their walls.
Egyptians are black.
What?
The real Egyptians are black. Because the real Egyptians, they are real Africans. So those people in Lower
Doctor.
you see in Cairo, Alexandria, and Falahins area, they were mixed between Turkish, Mamluks, French, English, Romans.
Now you heard him? He said the original Egyptians are black. The ones you see now are mixed with Turks, Romans, and Asians. So I guess you got your Asian out of that.
British.
And the British. He said that's what the Arabs are mixed with. But the original people to that land are black. They're Africans. And see, here's my thing. This is a person who lives in the land. Who cares what you think? This is a person who describes himself in that land. You don't have to take no European scholar who writes a book and say, hey, man, hey, I'm going to take the person who live in the land.
So those people who come to attack Egypt in that time, they couldn't come to Abadi, to the south, which we still have the same color. Our
dark color, or black color. So
Egyptian.
they couldn't mix with us.
Hold on. He said the people who came to conquer later didn't want to come to their side because they didn't want to mix with them. Why they didn't want to mix with them? Because during that time, it was during the white supremacy. And if you mix with them, what color are you going to be? Black. That's the whole point. They like, no, we don't want to mix. We want to mix with a lighter shade of people. We'll mix with the Romans. We'll mix with the Dutch. We'll mix with the British. But we ain't mixing with you Negroes, the original people. And he said that's the reason why we was able to keep our color, because they didn't want to mix with us. But they forced them out of there.
About the Nubians and Egyptians. They were not white. They are black Africans. So he say now, they in الناس اسمهم صعيد بحري بيض. He say people in Lower East, most of them they are not Egyptians. They are Greeks, from South.
See, that's why we brainwash stuff like this. That's the reason why you believe that the Egyptians are light-skinned people. Brown.
When the writing's on the wall.
Right there on the wall. Now, let's look at this painting. Now, this is what the painting's gonna look like later on. Notice how they light the painting up now. It's over time. Look how dark that painting is. Look, same picture. Modern day time. Woo! Boy, I'm telling you, another 500 years, she's gonna be white.
Look at the braids.
Lighter. Now look at him. Telling you. That go that picture he was talking about right there. Asian addicts, people. See how brown they are? That's that picture. See what it looks like now. Look at that. Seriously?
Trying to separate them, make them look distinct.
Yeah. Trying to make the Israelites look different from the Egyptians. This is why, look at that. Them white people in there making it lighter. Erasing the true history of those melanated people there. Because they know that they got all their science, their art, their medicine. Yeah, restoration, my butt. Restoration, erasing. Look at that. Look at that black all throughout. Look at it. Look at them lips on that one. Yeah, notice the Cushites was many colors. Many colors. Cushites, Israelites, Egyptians, many colors.
They don't look white to me.
Yeah, look at them froze. Hey, Jackson 5 right there. Them braids.
Like my hair. Sister Locks.
Look at that. That's the Negro nose for you. Early Egypt. There you go. What else can I say about this? See, what he wanted to do in his presentation is do the old African stereotype. He'll show the light skin or light brown, and then he'll refer to black people as Africans, and he used the stereotypes. Well, you know, look at the lips and nose on this one, how dark they are.
And we don't look anything like that.
Don't look nothing like that. We got many shades over here. Matter of fact, you know we don't look like that. You got, see, this is the old African trick. That's what they did for Obama. Man, half white, half black. But hey, put him in some old African garbs. Man, he a jungle bunny. African stereotype throughout. Look at that. LeBron James. Got him as Planet King Kong. Got him a white woman on the side. All this stuff that's in plain sight in America. This is the reason why we cannot accept the truth. And all I got to say is, that's racist. Now, we got some more half-truths coming up.
Although fake black Israelites point to certain Egyptian art and claim the men and women have Negro hair, the fact is the ancient Egyptians wore specialized wigs, often braided wigs, and these groups confuse them with Negro hair. However, as the work Historical Wig Styling confirms, like Egyptian women, Egyptian men usually shaved their heads and wore wigs.
Now that's his proof, y'all, that the hair was wigs.
But earlier he said the Egyptians had straight hair.
Yeah.
And black women we don't have straight hair.
Well, let's get into it.
Say what?
Say what?
Say what?
Say what?
Say
what?
That's how I feel about that. But guess what, y'all? It's okay, because this is too easy. These are European people. And guess what they're wearing? Wigs. But guess what type of wigs they're wearing? Wigs that are associated with who? With them. You don't see them with no braids up in their hair. No, they're using their hair as, you know, as part of who they are. To enhance themselves. Mm-hmm. So that lets you know that the Egyptians was using hair associated with their own hair.
Right.
That's a no-brainer. The same thing goes on today. Black women. Now, you don't think that's their hair. No, that's not their hair. But they're using hair that's associated with their blackness. Now, I hate to say it, due to some brainwashing, due to the slave mentality, we have started putting other people's hair in our heads, and I hate it. I don't like it, because when you look at the black woman, you'll honestly say, well, that's not their hair. Well, guess what? I'm pretty sure the Egyptians wasn't brainwashed at that time. They was putting their hair, their style of hair on their heads. That was like one, I don't want to say dumb, but I don't understand why he made that as an example of why they couldn't be black folks. That, you know, it's the say what moment.
Got him! Got him!
Exactly. Got him. Now, this is a guy who, you know, he's doing a documentary. Now, I do not claim to be a scholar. I'm not a scholar, not a theologian, but I'm an educated black man. And notice I use the word black man. I'm an Israelite. I know I'm an Israelite. Now, what we have now is an Egyptian confession. This is a person who lives at least in Egypt. So let's look at him at least as a citizen of Egypt. Now, look at him.
It could be my uncle.
Hey, I'm telling you, if he didn't open his mouth and the brother walked on the south side, he's black. And let's see what he has to say. And let's see what he had to say who the Israelites are or were and are both.
That's why he based him off. Yeah, because when by this time, almost of the Jewish people who speak that those were white.
Exactly.
How could you change your skin?
Yeah, exactly. All of them.
Yeah, the reason why they are black and we know them.
Yeah.
We know them from thousands of years. How you change it and you turn to white? What?
He said, we know the true Israelites. We've been knowing them for thousands of years. How did you turn your skin to white? He asking the Jewish people, how do you turn your skin from black to white? This is a conversation that he's having with what you probably consider a black American. But this individual went to Egypt and he's having a conversation with this guy who actually is an Egyptian citizen. And he's saying, hey, the melanated or the black person is the true Jew. Meaning original.
Exactly. And it's not one person or two persons.
Exactly.
It's a punch or a whole punch.
Oh, some new people, like from nowhere.
From where did it come?
Exactly.
Who you are? You're Jewish? No.
No.
It looks like what? It looks like you are black and black.
Mm-hmm.
When we go to our white.
Yeah.
And knock the door and they're like, oh, hi, honey. Who are you? If your skin turned to white, she would say, this is the same way, she would say like that.
Yeah.
Who are you?
Yeah.
Hi, my husband is black.
Mm-hmm.
Who are you?
Who are you? Yeah. She isn't gonna let you in the house.
Of course.
Exactly.
She will kick you out. She will.
Exactly. And so a lot of people over in the U.S. sometimes don't even think that they don't even think that they're Israel because of what has happened in the U.S. over and for all these generations. You know, we spent many generations off the slave ships, and that way until they come over and start speaking to the people, and instead of listening to the media.
Did you go to the Egyptian Museum, my brother?
Yes.
Did you see the Memhat pylon?
Yes.
They are black.
Yeah, it was plenty of.
Yes.
He said the Egyptians are black. My brother.
It's the first dynasty. 7,500 years ago. Kyoto was black.
Say black.
Fine. It's all there. It's
lies.
Yeah, so.
He said it's lies. Lies. 7,000 years ago. He said this Pharaoh was black. See, the reason why we can't accept it is because of our captivity. And all we're saying is tell the truth.